right. So, like I said, this is a series of direct personal experiences that I've had with local government here in Brown County and Monroe County. This is not stories from somebody else. These are things that have happened to me. Now, the one difference between me and most people here is I have a law degree and I practiced for 15 years. So that makes me a lot more familiar with what the law allows and what it doesn't. Now, my point in bringing this up is to say that these things are happening to everyone. It's just that if you don't necessarily have the training to see it, you may not be aware that your rights have been violated until you're so far down in the barrel that you can't possibly get back out. I see it coming a little sooner because I know exactly where the lines are. So with that in mind, please consider the wisdom of the governments that do these things. First of all, when I tried to move into a home in Brown County, I discovered that Brown County had created its own separate septic training system, which is not at all authorized by state law. And the state health department will agree with me and tell you that Brown County is operating a completely illegal septic training system, forcing their inspectors, forcing inspectors to not be able to work in Brown County. The catch here is that they use the septic system to chase poor people out of the county. The more poor people you have in the county, the more it costs the county, and they just don't want to be bothered. So what they do is they find a house that's struggling in whatever way, they condemn the septic system and force people to move out. They've moved out dozens, if not hundreds of people and destroyed multiple houses, and among other people who've managed to save their homes, they're forced to pay between $15,000 and $35,000 for a Presby system that they really can't afford. It's a scam, it's completely illegal. I filed a federal lawsuit against them. Unfortunately, I didn't have the resources to pursue it. This is still going on in Brown County. This is unstopped. It's still happening. Consider the wisdom of a government that does that, and consider whether they should be allowed to do mass surveillance to enforce that even more strongly.
Boo. Boo.
The next thing that happened is I moved to Monroe County. Within a month of getting here, somebody pulled up and handed me a citation for running an illegal wood business. Illegal wood business is a really strange thing to get charged with. I did have a pile of wood, but I hadn't sold or bought a single stick of wood. Come to find out, the reason Monroe County did that to me is they don't have jurisdiction over a pile of wood. They only have jurisdictions over business. And so they falsified the document, the state document that they fill out with this report, and filed it and charged me with it, and were trying to charge me hundreds of dollars. So I went in and demanded the evidence that they had that I was running any kind of business, and the head of the department, while I was taping it, by the way, stood there next to the inspector and admitted that they had absolutely no evidence of me running a business, and that they had made that up so that they would have jurisdiction over it. Ultimately, what I found out was my wealthy neighbor down the road found out that I had pigs, and even though my area of the county allows me to have pigs, she thought it was, quote, the wrong kind of farming. It's always the goddamn horse people. You raise horses to demonstrate that you have enough money to raise animals that don't make food. It's a class thing. I have pigs, they're food. She had horses, they're not food, and she wanted me gone. It's a class warfare thing. I threatened them. I threatened them with a lawsuit, to be clear.
Yes, clarity.
I demanded that disappear, but then they just launched into a whole series of harassments, including sending the sheriff to my house. Now let's take stock of this. They admitted to committing the state crime of falsifying a record and doing it as a conspiracy between the head of the department and the inspector. That's a felony. Then they followed it up by sending men with guns to my home, the sheriffs, who were there to enforce the crime that they admitted to on tape. That county government should not be given this additional power.
Yes.
The next thing that happened, 2020, my 20-year-old son went to vote at the early voting center. On his way out of the voting center, he was threatened by a man with a knife.
Oh my God.
We reported this to the police department. They had video of it occurring and took no action and found nobody to charge. Again, what county government deserves respect when when they do get the pictures, they don't follow up on it with a violent crime outside the voting place. This is our local sheriff that did this to my family. The next thing that happened, you may have heard about the farmers market protests. I was part of that. There had long been political actions by the local Democratic Party handing out flyers in the farmers market, but suddenly when we discovered that there was a Nazi vendor, they made up a rule saying that no political speech could occur in the farmers market. They even came up with the most Orwellian thing I've ever seen, a set of rules that they called long-standing rules, even though right on the document it said that it had just been written. The long-standing rules purported to claim that we weren't allowed to speak there, and finally, after months of fighting back and forth about this, we were arrested. Again, sending men with guns to enforce a conspiracy by the government against us to put their hands on me and 4 other people.
Boo!
And the last thing I would like you to consider in this list is our jail.
Oh.
I don't know if you're aware, but 18 years ago there was a court order entered, a settlement agreement stating that our jail does not comply with the Constitution. So for 18 years at least, everyone in that jail has been held illegally under unconstitutional conditions. That is a crime. Do you understand that holding people under unconstitutional conditions is a crime? Taking someone into custody knowing that they will be held under unconstitutional conditions is a crime. Nobody with a conscience would do that. Even now, while our local government officials are working on finding a new jail, and supposedly that's the solution, no one is talking about the fact that over 200 people are being held in there today under unconstitutional conditions, and nobody is doing anything about it. In fact, they're so proud of it, they named that building after the leader of their local Democratic Party. With that in mind, I would ask you to consider whether any government should be granted any additional powers when it is already committing these crimes against us, including sending men with guns to enforce their crimes. There are 4 specific things that this local government has within its power, cannot be stopped by the state government from doing these things if they're serious about doing this legally. First of all is to provide a private right of action. That means that if the prosecutor chooses not to take up the case, any private citizen has the right to file that in court. The city can put that in the law if they want to create a good law. Secondly, punitive damages. If the city is going to create these situations where harm can occur, write it in the law that we can gain punitive damages. Number 3, one of the ways they hide this is with the APRA fees. They charge you money to look at your own records. They can write in the law that there will be an APRA waiver so that they allow the records to come out without you having to pay a fee. And finally, a waiver of sovereign immunity. They can always claim that they don't have to face you in court due to sovereign immunity, but they also have the power to waive that. So if this government wants to add additional power, they have lots of power to comply with the law and to make it reasonably enforceable by the citizens. If they aren't willing to do that, they're telling you that they intend to continue to commit crimes against us and to simply add to their power with this camera to enforce these illegal acts on us. Thank you.
Woo!